The Cincinnati Reds deliver not one, but two of their worst performances on back-to-back days at a time when the team can least afford to do so. We're going to break it down and tell you what it means on today's Locked On Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Reds podcast. My name is Jeff Carr. His name is Steve Offenbaker, and we are lifelong Cincinnati Reds fans. We've been podcasting about this team for a combined 14 seasons, and we're glad that you're alongside us here today. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team, your Cincinnati Reds, every single day. And on today's podcast, the Reds could possibly draft Nick Lodolo again. We'll tell you why later on in the show. The Reds, they need some help in the outfield, but they could look for some affordable players that won't break the bank to accomplish that through some trades. We'll discuss why coming up here in a few minutes. But we will begin today's show with why the Reds are the most frustrating thing that they could possibly be. Because, quite frankly, Steve, after these last couple of games, it's now their third four-game losing streak this season, as they've lost four in a row. 12-2 to the Marlins after getting beaten up the first night against the Marlins. Like, what are we doing?
The last 2 days have been some of the most frustrating, most unprofessional, most terrible looks that this team has delivered in years. I'm talking on level with the 2018 3 and a million start. I'm talking about a look of a bunch of guys that don't care, that have no professional pride, that are going out there and playing baseball in a way that makes little leaguers cringe. That defensive display 2 days ago in the top of the sixth inning, you and I could have played better defense in that situation. This team scratched and clawed and fought its way through that gauntlet of a schedule only to do that thing really that they've done to us all along, which is set us up to get kicked in the teeth. This team made us believe. This team made us think they were willing to be relevant. This team made us think they were going to be in position to be buyers. And they go out against the fish, against the team that was supposed to start the rise of their relevancy. And what do? They laid down and didn't give a crap about the result or the product that was on the field. How Terry Francona's not screaming into microphones, I don't know. That's probably one of the more disappointing things. This team needs to be called out. Where's the accountability, Terry? You said you were going to hold people accountable. After what you've put on the field the last 2 days, you need to be held accountable. This is terrible, Jeff. There is no excuse for what was gone down in Cincinnati the last 2 days. The offense has been non-existent. The defense has looked like people are learning how to play baseball for the very first time. This was their opportunity, and it's being squandered. Now, I will allow for this. You and I have talked about all along that they have done exactly what we've asked them to do in the most frustrating way possible. My only hope is that they're doing that right now, and this is on brand, and they're going to win the next 5 games. If they win the next 5 games and go 5-2, and this is how it starts out, I may have to revise this take, but right now I'm ready to fire everybody.
I think I'm gonna bring you back just a little bit because I'm not there with you because of a couple of different reasons. This team has been so frustrating this season because of stretches like these last 5 days. All right, 4 losses in a row. They've scored 5 runs in those 4 games. They've looked horrible. 5 days ago, they made this amazing comeback on July 4th and looked like amazing baseball players as they beat the Philadelphia Phillies in their home ballpark. And we were thinking, man, looking forward at this team, this looks pretty solid. Now, I think I have come to the conclusion, and I can confidently say that the Reds aren't good, but they aren't bad either. They are the most frustrating thing that you could possibly be, and that is mid. This is an 84-win ball club, Steve, and 84 wins doesn't get anybody fired. 84 wins doesn't call for sweeping changes to the roster. 84 wins tucks Bob in at night. And that is exactly where we are. And that is the most frustrating place for you, for me, for those listening at home that love this team, that we could possibly be in, because we can look at this roster and say, these guys are underperforming. We can look at this part of the roster and say, these guys are doing pretty well. But everything that is lining up perfectly, where, like I mentioned, third 4-game losing streak of this season, the Reds have 5 4-game winning streaks, or 4+ winning streaks this season. So for as bad as they are, they're not as bad as you think. But for as good as they've been, they're not as good as we want them to be.
Yeah. Mid. You're absolutely right. It's very frustrating. I Jeff, as we record, I'm getting ready to come to town to watch this monstrosity play the Colorado Rockies. And I just don't, I'm deflated. The wind is out of my sails, Jeff. I don't know. We want to talk about what they can add. We want to talk about how they can be better. I don't even know where to begin. I told you in show prep today that I didn't know where to start with these 2 losses, because it was an absolute total collapse all the way around. Usually we can point at one place or one side or one thing, but they forgot how to field. They forgot how to hit. They forgot how to care. They forgot how to look like a professional baseball team.
They forgot how to pitch.
They forgot how to pitch. They forgot how to do all the things. They have to right this ship. They've taken the surprise they gave us. They've taken the being above 500 in a stretch where we didn't really expect them to be. They've taken that and they've thrown it out the window now. Doesn't matter. What they did during that gauntlet doesn't matter now, because we're right where we expected them to be coming through that. So all of their gains are gone. So now the question is, can they go out there and get it back? How does this team refocus? How does this team dial back in and maintain that thing, that one little thing we've had fun with all year, which is the only team to not get swept? That's what they have to go out and do now, right? They have to go out and protect that trophy, because if they lose, if they get swept, I'm going to lose my mind.
I'm telling you, it's either today or tomorrow. They're going to just go crazy. They're probably going to score like 12 runs, and we're going to be like, where was this the rest of the series? Because there's a couple of different things that are pointing to that. But when I go back and I take a look at these three losing streaks of 4 games during the season, you can see a bit of a progression. Because in their first 4-game losing streak, they were 2-6. And you're like, boy, this is a rough start to the season. In their second 2-game losing streak, they were just 1 game under 500 after the 4 games. Now, with this 4-game losing streak, they're at 500. So as much as a singular 4-game losing streak is super frustrating, and any losing streak is frustrating, but as much as it is frustrating, you can see a trend of the baseline raising. So for me, I'm not looking at these 4 games and saying, this is who they are, they're horrible. But I do see the holes in the roster that the Reds could possibly fill, and they could make this team better and make this team a wild card team, because I think as currently constructed, it's a 500+ ball club. 82 to 84 wins is what I think that this current team, unless they go through this crazy rash of injuries or they decide they're sellers, God forbid, and trade a bunch of guys, which I don't see happening, then I think that's how they finish. Because I look at a couple of different things too on frustrating sides of this. 5 runs in 4 games, everybody's just like, boy, see, this really exposes how bad this lineup is. Not so fast, my friend. League average batting average for a team is 245. The Reds are hitting 244. As a team after yesterday's game. League average for on-base percentage for teams is 316. The Reds are at 315. They're literally mid in everything when it comes to hitting. So if they could just raise that up just a little bit, because the pitching itself is still good. I get it. They just had a really bad game, so it's kind of weird to say that. But if you can couple slightly above mid hitting with what the Reds have pitching, you're going to have a wild card team. I still believe that, even on this day where there's plenty of Reds fans, if you're on Reds Twitter at all, that want to go crazy. I'm not there. It's because this team is not bad. It's mid.
I don't fault those people though, Jeff, because I'm almost one of those people that's ready to jump off the ledge, because not only is it that they've gone out and lost 2 in a row to a not good Miami Marlins team, but they've gotten their teeth kicked in. They gave up 12 runs yesterday to this team that they should have beaten. So there's the one that got away, right? But they were never in this. They, and it was great. Matt McClain homered in his leadoff at bat, or his first at bat of the game.
Hopefully
that was great to see. Hopefully that's a thing, right? But they just looked so bad that it's really hard, Jeff, to do that thing we try to do around here, which is to tell the truth, but also find the things that are good, to call it like it is, but also not be, Debbie Downer, not just find negative, not lean into the railing of this team, but
find the rays of sunshine in the clouds.
Yeah. There were no rays of sunshine. There's nothing to be happy about with this. So for me to feel better, I need the Reds to go out over the next. So we need them to go 5-2 over the next 5 games. I need them to reel off that nice 5-game win streak. I need them to give us that. Settle down, guys. You told us to go 5-2. We did. So that's what I need from this team. But let me tell you this, Jeff. As frustrating as these games have been, as frustrating as this team has been, you're not wrong. They are still in contention for a wild card, and there are some things they can do to make themselves better. There are some things they can do to keep themselves in position to compete for a wild card. That's going and getting an outfielder that's right-handed with a little bit of pop. We're going to talk about some affordable options to fill that role coming up next. If you're running a business, every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had a service emergency, like a burst pipe. If the first plumber didn't answer, did you wait? No, you called the next one. That's why having a reliable business line is so important. And that's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system that helps you streamline and scale customer communication, all from an app on your phone or computer. Do you have to juggle 2 phones just to keep business and personal calls separate? Well, Open Phone solved that problem. They're going to allow you to keep your things separate on one device and get the calls when you need to get the calls. Your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox. No more who's handling this. Open Phone is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnMLB. That's openphone.com/LockedOnMLB. And if you have an existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Make sure you are subscribed. That way you don't miss any of the times I lose my mind because of the things this team does, or any of the great Reds content we've got coming your way all season long. You're also going to get Tim Daniel each and every day following a Reds game with the live Reds postcast, where he tells you what you just saw. All right, Jeff, let's try and refocus. Let's dig back in. This team is still in contention for a wild card. This team still does have an opportunity to turn a corner before the All-Star break. One of the things they're going to need to do, though, is find that right-handed platoon, at least at a minimum, right-handed platoon, pop of a bat outfielder to help this lineup along a little bit.
And one of the first guys on the list we saw last night, he had an RBI hit, 2 RBIs actually on the game, and that's Dane Myers from the Miami Marlins. He's a right-handed outfielder. He's not a huge power guy, not a whole lot of pop in that bat, but he makes good contact, and he mashes lefties. I mean, mashes lefties. And he's got, really good fielding as well. Dane Myers is the kind of guy that would up the profile of the Reds outfield defensively. But to kind of break it down for you how much he mashes lefties, and don't get me wrong, the Reds lineup still not very good against left-handed pitching. He is. His slash line against lefties this year, Steve, in 59 at-bats, he is 356, 424, 559.
Sign him
and
up.
That is where the Reds need to go. In fact, according to the league split OPS plus, I use this sometimes, it's the OPS plus relative to everybody else in the league. So every hitter in the league against left-handed pitching Dane Myers is 83% better than them. Give me that dude. I want that dude. And he's 29 years old, so he's not going to break the bank if you're going to go trade for him. And on the season, he has 1.1 wins above replacement. He would be one of the best hitters in the Reds lineup right now.
I'll take him. Sign him up. Let's do it. Let's go do that. You know, one of the things is identifying weaknesses and fixing them, right? This team's been not that good against left-handed pitching for a while now.
Multiple.
And it's time that gets addressed. And you know, somewhere along the way, people started considering platoon player a dirty word, a term that means lesser than. It's not if you use it correctly. This falls into Steve's theme of fixing the Reds, which is put players in positions to be successful. Go get a guy that can mash lefties and only let him play against lefties. I know that sounds like a crazy idea, Jeff, right? Like, we let the guy that's good against lefties play against lefties and not make him do the other things. Likewise, you take the guy that's a left-handed hitter that's good against right-handed pitching, and you put those guys together and they form a superpower. And that is a guy that's a consistent good spot in the lineup. That's what the Reds are lacking, is consistency. That's what the Reds are lacking, is guys that go out there and can intimidate the other team. I'm all for making a move, Jeff. Here's the problem, and help me with this, because you're really good at going and identifying these guys, but it's really hard right now to identify the sellers. Even as we've talked about Miami's clearly a seller. Miami's clearly going to blow it up. Well, you know, they've won 7 of their last 10. And they want to tell their fan base, we've still got fight in us. How do you go out and find the guys that are actually legitimately going to blow this up? We talk about Nick Krall having some pressure on him. And I think the biggest piece in the beginning right now is identifying the guys that you should even get on the telephone to try and have these conversations with.
And that's where I'm looking at Dane Myers because of this, because he's 29 years old. And while the Marlins are not going to be a team that trades everybody, they are going to be a team that considers trading multiple players, and he would be within that profile. They've got a guy on their bench in Heriberto Hernandez who could slot into Dane Myers' place, and Hernandez is 23, where Dane Myers is 29. The Marlins are a rebuilding team, regardless of their 7 out of 10 wins, 7 out of 10 games that they've won. They're a team that's still building up. They still got young guys that they want to feature, like Agustin Ramirez, who has killed the Reds this year. But they've got to build around guys like that. Dane Myers isn't going to be around for that much longer. He does have multiple years of team control, but at 29 years old, that's a guy that the Reds could reasonably acquire from a team like the Marlins, who I don't think that they will blow it up seller-wise. But if they can add, they will look to add. And Dane Myers will be a guy that they can do that with. Another player in which would come from a team that I don't think is going to blow it up, but I do think would sell if given the opportunity, is Alex Call. Alex Call is a right-handed outfielder, really plays more of the corners. Dane Myers plays a lot more center field, but can play all 3 outfield positions. Alex Call plays more of the corners than center field this year, but a right-handed outfielder from the Washington Nationals. The Nationals, as we know, just fired their manager and their general manager, even though they're about to pick number 1 overall this Sunday. But they've got a really good shot to sell off a couple of parts. Alex Call, a perfect candidate for that. And he is a good contact hitter, not a lot of power, but he mashes lefties. He's solid defensively. He's not as good as Dane Myers is, but he mashes lefties. Again, to the tune of 355 batting average in 62 at-bats, 391 on base, 500 slugging against lefties this season. And overall, I mean, he's got a 125 OPS plus, so it's not as if it's just left-handed hitting. Again, he's got a WAR over 1 and would fit in nicely on this team.
Does he have reverse splits? While I finish this thought, look that up for me, because you look
He
at
does not.
He does not. I think he profiles well for being one of the guys the Reds should look at, or at least the type of guy that the Reds should look at. He's 30 years old. He's not going to cost you as much as some other guys would. You look at his slash line overall for this season, Jeff, in 61 games, 290, 382, 396. Again, he's not going to hit the home. He's going to get you a home run every other day.
He's going to get
on base. But that's the guy that can get on base and give RBI opportunities to other guys on this team, and you keep it moving forward. You look at his OPS plus, he's playing 25% better than league average right now. And I think from a national standpoint, as they're blowing everything up, as they're clearly moving in a direction of fresh start, new beginnings over there, this is the kind of piece they could flip for a couple prospects probably in return that help move that along. And they're not giving up a guy that's a big piece or someone that the organization was counting on anyway. I wouldn't mind this move either. In fact, let's do both. Let's get both of the guys we've talked about so far.
I was going to say, if you want to do both, and honestly, there's a really good chance that this guy would be a good move one-off anyway, but a guy that the Reds could go get, and he's moved around these last few years. He's 30 years old, but he's a right-handed outfielder who we know he's a good fielder, and he also, for his career, hits lefties pretty well, but this year he's kind of got reverse splits a little bit, but I don't know that I necessarily think of that as, okay, now he can't hit lefties. He's just had a weird year, and that's Ramón Laureano. And he's coming from a team that is definitely looking to blow it up, especially for guys in their 30s, and that's the Baltimore Orioles. If the Reds were to call Baltimore, and I know I had a conversation with Connor Newcomb last week where we talked about Ryan O'Hearn and Yennier Cano, I would almost prefer the Reds look at Ramón Laureano and Yennier Cano. And if they could get those two guys for Chase Petty. Now, both Laureano and O'Hearn are both rental players, no matter which one you get. But Yennier Cano has multiple years of team control. You could get your bullpen piece and your outfielder for, one prospect. I think that would be an amazing deal.
You really think you could get it done for just Chase Petty? I think you're going to have to give more.
Probably not. But then you wouldn't have to add that much more to it. Like, it'd be Chase Petty and probably a mid-level guy that folks don't really know who he is type of player. Prospect.
I'm sold. I'm looking at Ramon's stats as well. It's another guy that kind of jumps off as a piece you could slot right in on this Cincinnati Reds team. Again, you mentioned 30 years old, 2.2 in WAR. That's not terrible. That's
one of the better players on the team.
One of the better players on the Reds team. 63 games played this season, Jeff. He's been on the field, /line 273, 344, slugging 500, OPS plus. He's playing 37% better than league average right now. And that's exactly the kind of jolt this Reds lineup would need. So I think these are all three of these players you've identified are really good options and really set the idea, right? This is the idea of things you could do to put a jolt in this lineup, because clearly this lineup needs a jolt. We've spent a lot of this season talking about if this guy can get going, if this other guy can live up to his potential, if this third guy can be what we think he might be able to be and turn a corner. It's time to throw that narrative out. It's time to go out and get some solid dudes that can be jolts, that can be sparks, that can help you get guys on base, get them on, get them over, get them in, score runs, however you got to score runs, to not lose 12-2 to the frickin' Florida Marlins or Miami Marlins or whatever the heck they're calling themselves this year.
Exactly. And the good news is that's about the present. If we look toward the future, though, and we think about this Sunday and the draft, the Reds actually have a chance to draft Nick Lodolo all over again. I'll explain what I'm talking about coming up. Baseball's taking center stage, and there's no better way for you to make a couple of bucks on your baseball knowledge every single day than to go over to FanDuel.com. Plus, if you're a new user, you can place a $5 bet, and if it wins, you get $150 in bonus bets. Those are some crazy odds, almost as crazy as the odds that FanDuel has on the Reds to make the playoffs. A yes bet on the Reds to make the playoffs, the odds on that are at plus 470. I think I'm still putting a few on that. I got a good feeling about the Reds' ability to make the playoffs this season. And if you do too, head on over to FanDuel.com and put a couple of bucks on that yes bet at plus 470. And if you place a bet on like who's going to hit a home run tonight or who's going to get a hit, some RBIs, something like that, $5 will get you $150 if it's your first winning $5 bet. That's over at FanDuel.com. They're America's #1 sportsbook. If you can't watch us on YouTube, you can always listen to us on your favorite podcast app. We're on all of them out there. Go check us out today. Also, go check out Locked On MLB Game Night after you're done with this episode of Locked On Reds. over on the Locked On MLB feed. Locked On MLB Game Night watches every game, every night, so that you don't have to, and they keep you up to date. All right, Steve, Sunday, we've got another name here. We've been talking a lot about some different players, some different names to keep an eye on that the Reds could pick with the 9th pick in the draft. And I've kind of leaned on some mock drafts from different folks over at Baseball America and ESPN. Well, a recent draft in The Athletic, a recent mock draft in The Athletic from our favorite baseball writer, Keith Law, has the Reds picking Jamie Arnold at number 9. Jamie Arnold, a left-handed pitcher, 6'1", 165 pounds, out of Florida State. And there's a lot about him that basically just looks like a mirror version of Nick Lodolo.
Well, that's a lot of potential. And I would love to say that comparison makes me super happy, but pitchers are hard. It's hard, Jeff. It's hard on these draft picks because it takes them so long to get here. You know, you look at a guy like Arnold. You're right. A big, strong, left-handed pitcher. He's a guy that entered 2025 as the best pitcher according to most rankings, but there's some concerns. You know, he saw his velocity tick down a bit. He's been passed up by a few others. You know, pitchers like Kate Anderson, Doyle's another guy that has passed him. I think I don't want to go pitcher. That's what I'm going to say right now. I do not want the Reds to go pitcher. I want the Reds to go with one of the hitters that we've talked about already. You know, the more I think about it, the more excited I get about an opportunity for the Reds to draft Irish. And I think I'm just going to be Team Irish. I'm going to start wearing the green jersey from today and try to manifest that.
I do want an Ike Irish jersey for sure. And we are an Ike Irish podcast. But looking at the possibility of Jamie Arnold is intriguing because he would move fast. He was rated before the college season started this year. He was rated as the top college pitcher in the draft. And part of the reason was he was 3rd in strikeouts in 2024, just behind Chase Burns, who we know well, and Hagen Smith, who went number 5 overall to the White Sox last year. So he was right up there with the guys that were already getting picked, and he just had one more year to go. There's 2 reasons why I think, like, I'm looking at Nick Lodolo, and I even wrote in our notes as a joke, you know, has anybody seen Jamie Arnold and Nick Lodolo in the same room together? Because of the delivery style. Just me and Tim Daniel. Because the delivery style of Jamie Arnold, he has kind of a low 3/4 arm slot whenever he throws. Lefty pitcher as well. And his pitch mix. He's fastball that kind of has a little bit of a sinking 2-seam action to it, and a slider. And they say that his slider kind of looks more like a sweeper, which I kind of argue that Nick Lodolo's slider looks more like a curveball sometimes. And I think when it's working the best, it looks like a curveball and not a slider. But he's fastball, slider, and he has a changeup that needs work on his command. Nick Lodolo worked on his command, on the changeup command this year, which is a big reason why he has still been a pretty good pitcher despite the inconsistency in his breaking ball pitch. But this looks like Nick Lodolo on a piece of paper.
If you were to look at this Reds farm system, Jeff, I'm kind of trying to formulate what it is I want to ask you, because I keep looking at the farm system right now and then looking back at the major league team and the needs that they have. And it would be, you know, it would be hard to be upset if they draft Arnold. It would be hard to be upset if they draft any good pitcher, really. The way that pitching is a commodity. When we talked to Tyler Gibbons the other day, you know, he made a great point about, you know, you draft these pitchers and get the surplus and then go trade for that outfielder or go trade for whatever that other need is. And I get that mindset, but, you know, I really feel like they've reached a tipping point where they do need to go out and actually start looking to develop some in-house non-shortstop talent in the minor leagues to address the offensive side of things, to address the position player side of things. And so the more I look at, you know, these pitchers that they're, you know, their stock is falling, I would rather focus in on and talk about the guys where, like, they fell to you on draft day as a position player versus, we're looking at them going to be available because they didn't live up to their expectation in their final year before the draft. Does that make sense?
No, and that's definitely fair with Arnold because, and I think because I was reading more about the velocity, losing the velocity and things like that. Like I'm like, was it really bad? And quite frankly, they had sort of noted it as he didn't like lose a ton. It didn't jump up like Cade Anderson or Liam Doyle, or even some folks say Gage Wood might be a better college pitcher than Jamie Arnold is, at least based on their 4 performances this year. I do find it a little bit interesting though, because if the Reds have the opportunity and let's say Ike Irish and Jamie Arnold are on the board, I'm team Ike Irish in that case, because I believe that Ike Irish is going to move from catcher to the outfield, and he's probably going to move through the system reasonably fast. I don't know that I would expect him to be in the mix for 2026, but maybe 2027, he'd be ready to go. Whereas Arnold could move through the system fast enough that he is in the mix late in 2026. But how much better does that make this team? Because, right, when you look at the farm system, it seems like Hector Rodriguez is far and away the top outfield prospect. And then you got to look past him to be like, who is the next guy? And even Hector Rodriguez probably profiles as fast to the major leagues as Ike Irish does. Maybe Hector Rodriguez is in the mix in 2026, but I really I feel like if the Reds have the opportunity, and there are some that believe that both Ava Arquette, who we talked about yesterday, the shortstop prospect out of Oregon State, and Ike Irish, there's a chance that neither one of them could be available for the Reds at number 9 because teams above them get enamored with college hitters who can move fast, and Ike Irish would be considered an underslot guy who they wouldn't have to sign for the top signing bonus in their spot. So there's a little bit of strategy that could play that could kind of mess the Reds up here at number 9 if they do want to go the route of college hitter. So then guys like Jamie Arnold, if Seth Hernandez is there, that prep pitcher we talked about earlier, or there's some other college pitchers that could be available to them as well, would probably be the backup plan for me. Like if I were to deem a strategy that the Reds should take, it should be college hitter if they're there.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that as well. And that, I think, Jeff, is where we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. Thanks, as always, for making Locked On Reds your first listen of the day. For your second listen, go check out the Locked On MLB channel. 2 great shows going on in that feed right now. You get Sully with the national perspective, covering the league each and every day. And then you get MLB Game Night. They're watching every game every day, bringing you the important information, breaking it down. They're watching it all so that you don't have to. Go check both those shows out. Both give you a great national perspective of Major League Baseball. We'll be back in your feeds tomorrow. Until then, we'll keep gathering up the news, the notes, the informations, the rumors, and the reports to keep you locked on Reds every single day. They better win the next 5 games or I am going to lose my mind.
It's going to be a tough week.